Hi, I'm Paul Ford,
And I'm Rich Ciotti.
and you are listening to slash watching Reqless, Reqless, the podcast about how AI is changing software. I don't know why I get this radio voice, but I think I get the microphone in front of me, and it's kind of like I just got to do it.
You're on air. You're
I
on
am. I'm
air.
on air, and I sort of have this voice, and I think as a big nerd, I enjoy the contrast between my online persona, which definitely sounds kind of D and
Yeah.
D, and then my actual voice, which
It's
sounds like I'm
nasally
announcing.
and whiny.
Yeah, you would expect me to be that, but no, I sound like I'm announcing baseball. Anyway, that's not what this is about. We're going to talk about AI and jobs.
Again?
Again, there's news. There's news. We got to talk about the news.
All right, let's play that theme song.
Here it goes.
Reqless.
So, an interesting memo went out this week.
Okay. Where?
Okay, you ever heard of the company Shopify?
I have. Of course.
Yeah, you go online, you buy stuff. You like to buy stuff.
I'm more of a spiritual person, but occasionally I buy some things, yes.
Me too. And so the CEO of Shopify is this guy. I know him as Tobi in my head, but his name is Tobi Lütke. It has a two dots over the U.
Oh,
One of those, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like a metal album. But regardless, what do you know about Shopify?
Shopify is it's essentially an e-commerce platform. So if you want to sell stuff, you can sell stuff on Shopify. Like it's gotten to the point where you're not just selling stuff like you're selling on eBay or Etsy. You can create a full-blown storefront experience. The buyer or the shopper will never see the word Shopify. It's really a full-service storefront platform for the web to sell things.
And actually behind that, very API driven, very sort of powerful. So a lot of places use Shopify that you might not know about. I love also when you hit the Wikipedia page, it says don't confuse it with Spotify because they both have green icons and everyone does.
Everyone does. Yeah.
Get a little scope in here. What's their market cap?
Billions, probably.
148.37 billion.
Massive company. And
So-
by the way, they went through they used to be point and click years ago, little backstory. And they were like, wait a second, that's too small. We have to let people, like big brands use Shopify. Like Shopify is now one of the top e-commerce platforms in the world.
I mean, we have recommended it to a lot of mid-sized people who want to do retail stuff online.
Exactly.
Because it's a mature platform for selling things online, all the commerce and sort of all. A good example is just like I need to ship internationally. I have to deal with taxes internationally, like things like that really crop up and can kind of wreck you if you try to roll your own. Okay, so 8,000 employees or so. Okay, and Tobi or CEO Lütke, as we like to call him, sends out a memo. It gets leaked. He leaks it because he's like, I see it's going to get leaked. I do this a lot. Whenever I send out a memo, I'm just like, obviously this is going to get leaked to the press. So let me just put it on X. He's one of the 5 people who pays for that X feature where you actually can write a whole blog post, which is very confusing. So good for him. He's worth, he has a $180 billion company. He can afford that. So I'll read you just basically, let me just give you the gist because like many technologist leaders, he can't write anything under about 5,000 words. Everybody's got to use AI at Shopify, including the executive team. It is now part of your core responsibility and you will be reviewed on it.
Use AI.
Use AI.
The shortest TLDR here. Use it.
Here is the title of one of the sections nails it. Reflexive AI usage is now a baseline expectation at Shopify.
We want you to use it.
You got to use it. You got to get in there. You got to use it a lot. You got to get good at it. It has to be part of your prototyping phase. You got to use it to do, you're going to be evaluated on your peer reviews. And and here's the key thing, and this is kind of the kicker, and this is what the media has been hitting, is no new head count unless you prove that AI can't do it.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. What it makes me think of is here's something humans do, and it has been the downfall historically for especially technology companies for the longest time, is that when you become really, really great at something and you find incredible success, and as you look back, you create a corner of your big office complex that's like the museum and how it all began. And here's the original laptop. You essentially become very enamored with and very engrossed in your history and your success. And when technology just comes barreling through again at you, right? What you used to be great at is not so great anymore and is not so impressive. And the examples are all over the place. Xerox not moving into computing because they thought everybody would, make photocopies. Kodak, not And the truth is, it takes a certain level of humility and a certain willingness to sort of shed what you thought was so exceptional about your expertise and realize that you're going to have to move forward. And I don't know if anyone has done that better than Satya Nadella at Microsoft. Microsoft just dug in and they had their own browser code base, right? They had their own, renderer, and they were like, he said, "Why? Who cares? Take Chromium." And the idea of doing that, the idea of releasing Excel for the iPad was like big news. He was like, "Wait, Excel helps us sell Windows." He goes, "But it's Excel. Everybody needs it."
The most dangerous words in the world if you're at Microsoft? That's not very Microsoft.
Sure. Exactly. And the way I've said this way back in one of the 4,000 podcasts is to really progress, you have to fall out of love with your own legacy, your own expertise, and it takes a willingness to be a novice. First off, being a novice is a gift. Learning something new is actually a gift. But look, people are in their careers and they're incredibly good at what they do because they've been sharpening it for 20 years. And now all of a sudden, a dumb robot seems to do it pretty well. And people can't help but be defensive about it. And what this guy is essentially saying is, not only do I not need you to worry about that, it's actually how I'm going to determine if you're doing a good job. So he just...
What I love too, do you remember the offsite that we had when we ran an agency?
Yes.
And we all went out, and there were maybe like 10 people in the executive team.
Yeah, for a 26-person agency.
Put that a lot of executives. And we're like, look, we're seeing a lot of inbound. We're seeing a lot of growth.
Yeah.
How do we want to handle this? Obviously, we want to keep our margins up. We want to give you guys big bonuses. Here we go. And we went around the room, and every single person, what did they do?
They suggested we hire someone else.
Yeah. By the time we'd gone all the way around the room, we were like $4 million in debt. We had gone from everything's great, like good margins, to like negative 35% margins, and so we said we're an agency, and if we add all those bodies, we'll have to pay for them, and everybody got real quiet.
I remember this very distinctly.
It was in a breather, which is a sort of like rent an office for a couple hours kind of space. So what I'm saying is I think there's also an element of, CEOs are always doing two things at once. Hey, I want to inspire you guys and I want to guide you in your career because this is what's going to be good for the company. Mm-hmm. Also, you've all been really annoying for the last 20 years. I would just love to just drive it in just a little bit. The head count comes from the top. Yeah. So I'm reading it both ways. Yeah. I'm reading him go hey, maybe rather than us hiring a whole team of new AI experts who are going to build out this new part of our platform,
go learn it.
Why don't you sit down with Claude for $20 a month and just shut your Shopify pie hole until you show me some results?
Is that how you read it, by the way?
Every CEO comes out. There's no way that you run an $140 billion company purely by making high-minded, let's go team statements.
And we've said this in the past. The instinct is to get defensive. And look, by the way, we're not speaking to the creative side of things, like the arts and journalism and writing. That's a more complicated, knotty issue here. Like,
No, this is about building Shopify.
Exactly.
APIs and
And the truth is, there is no neutral state. You're either going to put a jersey on where you're like, AI is going to ruin everything, and I am an expert at my craft, or you're going to go the other direction, and you're going to say, I think I could be better at whatever it is I do, and I could probably learn some new things with these tools. Neutral is really not an option. It's a disruptive technology, which creates a lot of emotions and strong reactions about it. So nobody's like, I don't know, I guess, whatever. Nobody's saying that. They're either jumping in one camp or the other. And he's saying, look, for the health of my business and for us to continue to innovate, you got to play with these things.
All right, so you and I have been talking about this for a year, right?
Yeah.
And I think sort of what you're saying, like what people want to talk about with AI is it good or bad?
Yeah, a lot of that.
And that's they want that position, and our position is very different. It's a technology. It has wings, like it is flying, and you either kind of are going to go with it, or you're really going to spend a lot of time pushing back against it. And for me, that conversion moment was when it wrote me some Python that was pretty good. And I was just like, okay, that's not going back in the box. Here we go. I didn't care too much.
For me, for other outputs, right?
Yeah, I didn't care too much about its bullet points. I didn't like its creative work. I've never, as a writer, I've never like feted all my stuff and said, be Paul. I don't want to do that. I like being
I have,
Paul,
by the
but,
way. I feted all your stuff.
Well, that's great. So I don't have to come in anymore. I can just learn piano.
I've been ranting and chatting with a version of you for weeks now.
Do you know how happy you would be if you had a Paul that you could actually get to like behave? it'd be so exciting. Yeah. No, it's definitely. I mean, business partners should never be able to actually control the other ones. It's what keeps it lively. So anyway. I thought this would be a good opportunity because, look, this is an inflection point. Like Klarna has been doing a lot of stuff like this and so on, but this is sort of like the bellwether, late stage, post-Web 2.0, API-driven, tech-first company. And not only that, I think the important thing about Shopify, it grew to that valuation, it grew to that scale, nowhere near as the first mover in the space. There are many, many e-commerce options that you have out there. And so it's a good example of like, for whether you like them or hate them, right? Like they executed really well on the idea of everyone having more access to commerce, and they generated an enormous amount of value for a lot of people, and a lot of people are very, very loyal to them. And they did it through a very, very tech forward, very aggressively, like we're going to use all the new technologies and we're going to really make use of the web, and we're going to make it easy to build your site and easy to transact and so on and so forth. So when I think about them, I think about them as a real, like not a super mega ultimate giant, like they're only $100 billion plus, right? Compared to Apple or Microsoft, which are kind of like giant battleship ecosystems. They're like whole fleets. This is still one thing, but it is a thing that really represents kind of the state of the web and tech to me. And so when that CEO says, hey guys, guess what? This is your job now. That means a lot. Like it actually means that here we go. And so to me, I think what we should do, because we've been thinking about this for a year, my guess is some of the people listening are like, oh God, I guess I have to do this now.
You do.
You do.
I mean, you just kind of do. It's hard to avoid it. Yeah.
So let's do the 5 things they need to do.
Okay.
I'm going to start with 0, which is pay a certain amount of money a month. For God's sake, you work in technology, you can afford it. Pay a certain amount of money a month if your business doesn't provide it, and just get access to Claude or ChatGPT. Those are kind of the 2 big ones.
Get in there.
And start using them. You should really be using them to learn them. I would say like an hour a day at least.
They seem like magic and simple, but to get good at them, you actually have to use them, manipulate them. They are not magic tricks. They are actually not as smart as you. I think that's the big message here, which is how you negotiate and how you sort of evolve your dialogue is really important. You get much better output from it if you're willing to put that time in. You're manipulative. You're a manipulative user here. That's really the best way to put it.
But that is step 0. It's a skill. And what I've noticed is a lot of people who have a lot of strong opinions, pro and con, like haven't really dug in. They've just kind of received what they've gotten from the media. And so,
that's right.
So I think that is one. And I think like what you ask it to do. Go draw all the pictures you want. Have it draw you pictures in quotes. It just kind of generates them if you want. But really, like, think about tasks. What can it do? What task can it accomplish?
Yeah, and discrete tasks with discrete deliverables.
So now that you're using it, that was level 0. Let's go to level 1, which is, and this is funny, it's not AI, but literally make sure you know the business you're in. And then let me what do you think I mean by that?
Understand the business drivers for the place you work for, how it makes money.
Not just your discipline. You might be a designer or a product manager, right, and you know a lot about, how does your company make money? What tasks and what functions? This is just good general advice. But the reality is, if AI is coming for you, it's going to come there. It's going to come around bureaucracy and generating things that are expensive.
That's right.
It's going to be used to optimize things. Like if there are ways that it can do a thing that is cheaper than the way that was done before, that's where people are going to apply it. So if you want to be ready for the changes that are coming, start to look around and get ready for that stuff. So I think, like, if you are the designer at a company that sells dog treats, learn where the dog treats are sold. Are they mostly sold online? Are they sold in stores? Who markets them? How do people learn about the dog treats, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one, and it's kind of meta. But the second thing is, like, when you sit down and use this stuff, you're rehearsing and you're practicing, and you need to focus on concrete things, deliverables, summaries, code. I actually don't buy this whole thing where it's going to be really creative and you want it to invent and it's going to be your buddy. Like, I get that it works sometimes, but the actual thing you really want to be doing is thinking, what are the documents and the emails and the things that I produce that are maybe a little generic? And how can I get the robot to make those for me, or speed them up, or I can give it a couple key facts and it'll do the rest of the work? What templates can I create? How can I templatize my stuff? That's sort of part 2. Actually, why don't you take number 3, Rich?
All right. Don't factor out humans, factor out bureaucracy. That's a beautiful bit of wordplay there. Very cute. Very cute.
What did whoever wrote that mean by that?
There's a temptation to take whatever AI is producing wholesale, just put a bow on it and send it off, right? And the truth is, it is an accelerant, but it really doesn't have any contextual purpose or goal in mind when you're asking it to do things. It's good to know that about it, right? It doesn't have, like, well, in the context of this, I should really be factoring in that you're in this business. It doesn't do that, right? Like, you can set it up to do that to some extent, but get people, especially experts, those experts that we sound like we were marginalizing before, in the mix, because that's how you get it to really light up what is being produced. Now, bureaucracy is another matter. I love the story of how, like, Goldman Sachs, which takes years to decide if they want to let software into the bank, had Zoom working within like 2 weeks of COVID. Like, once the pandemic kicked in, they just signed off. And the truth is, that's just bureaucracy, right? And so the truth is, AI is incredibly anti-bureaucracy. It can be quite a sledgehammer if you use it the right way, but you still need people to round out the edges. Like, that's just absolutely still the case. Don't get a blob of output and paste it into an email. Read the output, edit it.
Well, I think here's the thing. AI has slurped up the entire web and a lot of other things too. And the world is full of bureaucratic documents, full of tax forms and ISO 9000 standards and resumes.
Process.
And so it's really good at using a statistical model. You put a prompt in, and if you tell it to make you a resume, it's a credible resume.
Totally.
Cover letter, a little bit less. If you tell it to if you tell it to write a performance report, it's okay. It feels a little weird. If you tell it to outline a performance report, because you're going to do an annual review, and then give you a couple sample bullet points, great. Like, and you've now, that starting point, you have saved yourself sometimes hours, sometimes days of time.
It's a great synthesizer, right? It's a really good synthesizer of all the knowledge out there. Usually we have to do that work. You should still do it as well, because it tends to overdo it, but it really does a great job summarizing and crystallizing what's already out there. So
So you've got this CEO of a giant company saying you got to go with AI before you get more headcount and so on and so forth. What I'm hearing there is like start to factor all that stuff out. It's not get rid of all the humans. He's emphatically not saying that. He's saying let's not add humans. And let's be clear to the CEO of a big company with 8,000 employees, humans are bureaucracy.
I mean,
They're
at
no
that
longer
scale, always, right? Yeah.
they're no longer the answer to everything that is going wrong. They are often more problem. And so what he's saying is don't bring me more problem, bring me more solution in the form of computer. And then if computer is not enough, we will allow the risk of more human to come into our organization. Now, did I make him sound like a terrifying robot? I did. I'm not going to explain that anymore. So, but that, so that's, but that is what's being asked. Again, I feel like I got to double down on it. Like, I don't know if this is the right thing or not. I just know that this is the thing that seems to be happening. And I worry about people who aren't actively engaged with this world because I think it's going to come real fast.
Well, I mean, it is coming. You looking away isn't going to make it not come. It's coming. Like, it's going to show up, and it's going to show up in more awkward ways later if you don't get ahead of it now. And the good news is, gosh, the overhead is real low to start playing around. Your first bullet was go get it and play around. You don't need 6 months of training. Eventually, what this guy has done is he's essentially skipped the orientation. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to have a workshop, it's like, no, we're not going to have a workshop. Go play. Go play with it and go be more productive.
No, he literally says that. Like it's on you.
I think the most important thing he says, and you can go look up the memo, I'm sure we're going to share the link, is we're going to factor this in to your success metrics when we do your review. That is it. It's over at that point. He's not saying give it a whirl. He's essentially saying your success here, your promotion, your bonus, or whatever it may be, is tied to you using these tools. Game over at that point, right? So he's essentially, in a very subtle way, kind of set the rules up here. Like, if that's it, right? And the truth is, there are artists at Shopify. There are content editors at Shopify. There's all kinds of people where this is really hits a nerve, man. But he's essentially saying, look, man, I'm not saying you're now rendered useless, but you got to play with these tools.
So I got two more things I think people need to do.
Man, that's a long list.
It's 5.
Did you get this from AI?
You have, how many fingers do you have? Okay, so you have 10. So it's half as many fingers as you have.
Keep going.
Calm down. Okay, so the last 4, and 5 is kind of a cheat. 5 is like go read. So I'm just going to we'll get there. Don't worry. It's really just the 4th one. Measure your results. And this one actually turns out to be unbelievably hard. This is not the easiest thing to do because how do you measure your results with a technology that kind of stochastically spits out a bunch of tokens? I want to hear your ideas. My sense of like, how do I measure my AI results is one is if it's coding, it's actually not just that did it solve the problem with the code. It's like, am I able to come back and get started and iterate? Like, is it creating artifacts that actually work in the long term? Or is it just kind of like waving its arms, doing magic tricks, and then suddenly like you come back later and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Because that's not work. That's not progress. That's a demo.
Yeah. I think there are 2 ways to measure results. One is self-measurement, meaning that problem that I thought was going to take up my whole Thursday took an hour.
Yeah.
And if it did, that is a wonderful metric of around success. And it worked, meaning you truly solved the problem that you would have spent a day on, right? But there's a more important one here. And this is what's so sly about this memo. And the more important one is when you take an artifact or a deliverable to your colleagues and they're very happy, that is the ultimate measurement. Here's what's happening, Paul. We've been talking about people defying AI and not wanting to use it. The truth is, a lot of people are already using it and not telling their bosses, and they're not telling their managers. And the truth is, they got to take the afternoon off, and they went to that new ice cream place because the output was good. They refined it, and they took it to their boss, and they were very happy. What this guy is essentially
3 words.
Yeah.
League of Legends.
What he's essentially saying is not only do you need to you don't have to hide. And you don't have to be ashamed. Not only should you not be ashamed, we encourage it and we expect it. That's a big difference, because probably half of Shopify is banging away at ChatGPT just so they can have the 3 hours of, I don't know, StarCraft 3.
There is another element of that, right? Which is he's going, hey, I know you're using it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And look,
I pay you for that afternoon.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
that's
this is what I'm saying about CEOs always communicating on those two levels. There's always it's not just about it's always very friendly, and then there's the stick is right behind.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing is, like, be very careful. This is the fifth point. Be very careful what you read. Okay, there's a lot of people talking about how the future is magical and there's going to be total AGI. That's irrelevant to this. There are a lot of people who are saying, I'm not even talking about the naysayers. Like, I actually think your biggest risk is like going on LinkedIn and just gobbling up AI sort of dream content. You have to really curate your sources and I think you have to this is kind of on you. Like, there's a million Substacks. The one that we come back to a lot, you and me, is Ethan Malik, who is very pro the technology, but he's also a professor at Wharton at UPenn. And he actually just published a big paper that is really interesting. I'm not all the way through it, but I did start reading it. And it's what they did is they worked with 700 plus people at Procter and Gamble. One group could use AI and one couldn't. And they found it's not like this wonderful miracle cure, but they did find, like, people who used AI in their creative sort of like Procter and Gamble project management, R&D type of tasks ended up a little bit happier, and it became kind of the group's buddy. It was less about the individual working together and groups working together. And I got to say, that's an undiscovered country. And I think that's also something Shopify is going for. We've all been using this technology in isolation, kind of getting stuff done.
Yeah.
And it's not really, Google Docs is collaborative. Everybody gets in the box and types together. But that's not what AI is about. You don't use Claude and ChatGPT together.
Yeah.
You use it. And so what he's saying is, when people are using this stuff together, and actually it's a big part of the Shopify memo too, if you start collaborating using these technologies, we want to really see what's coming next. And Malik's point is no, it's actually kind of powerful. So that's worth talking. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future podcast. The other one that we come back to all the time is Simon Willison, simonwillison.net. Classic technologist, a thoughtful person, very much a humanist of technology, who, similar to you and me, but earlier than us, saw this stuff and went, oh, well, that changes everything, and really decided
He's deep in it now.
And builds a lot of really good open source tools and kind of has created
Simon's
an ecosystem.
a little more technical. Simon is definitely... Ethan is sort of thinking about implications for the rest of the world and culture and business and whatnot, whereas Simon is like, new library came out, check it out, and he'll make a duck and put it in the newsletter.
Well, his big thing is pelicans. He likes to test everything with pelicans.
Yeah, that's right. And look, there are other good sources out there. Vet them out and be suspicious, because there's a lot of overhype right now. There's a lot of nonsense right now, a lot of like sort of recycled language, and it's a little silly. So we'll share some sources that are good. Noah Breyer's newsletter is very good too.
Oh, that's really good. We'll put those links in here.
Yeah. There's one more that's really great, written by Paul Ford, the Aboard
and sometimes
newsletter,
Ricciati,
and sometimes
you
Ricciati.
too.
So you can check that out at aboard.com, along with all the goodies we've been building. We are
well, to be clear about what we're trying to do here. We are building a software acceleration platform. It is very AI powered. It's good. It's coming into focus. We're going to share it with you really soon. I've been saying that for a while, but now clock's ticking. But we want to bring people gently into this technology, not just to use our technologies, but kind of as old software people. Like, we feel a need to kind of bring these worlds together. So it is our marketing newsletter. This is our marketing podcast, but at the same time, our goal here is to like help your career along, and we'll feel successful. That's how we measure our success, is people coming to an event and saying, hey, I like the podcast and it encouraged me to do this, that, or the other. So if you get anything out of this, let us know. And wouldn't mind those 5 stars. Wouldn't mind them.
Thumbs up,
it's okay.
Thumbs, stars, check boxes, wherever. Apple Podcasts.
I meant to wear my glasses during this podcast, because I think they make me look smarter.
Shoot. We got to reshoot it.
Yeah, let's redo this whole thing. All right. So, how do people reach us if they need us?
hello@aboard.com.
Sounds amazing. And thank you. Thank you, everybody. We will talk to you soon.
Best of luck. Have a lovely week.
Bye.